YouTube. Welcome to another episode from the Happy Woodworker. Today I'm going to start a segment that I'm calling Tool Talk. And on today's subject is, should I buy an expensive set of tools or should I buy a cheaper set of tools? That's a big question for a lot of people. And today I'm actually going to cross industries, and we're not just going to talk woodworking, we're also going to cross into the automotive field. Or maybe even into the trades, and I might even have something for you soccer moms out there. So, I've set out a selection of tools from various brands, and a lot of you might be tool shopping. Maybe you're new to woodworking, or maybe you're a new automotive technician who is looking to buy tools. So, the big question you're going to ask yourself, a lot of you automotive guys out there like to buy things from Cornwell or Snap-on or Mac. And if you're new to the field and you don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on your tools, the question you're asking yourself, is it really worth it? For example, I've got several wrenches sitting out here. I've got one by Craftsman, one by Stanley, one by Snap-on, and I've got one that's an off-brand that doesn't even have a name brand on it. This particular wrench I've had since I was 15 years old. Still good, still can use it. All of these have years and years and years of use on them, and every single one of them still does what it's supposed to. So let's start with Craftsman. That's a well-known brand, right? I have a complete set of Craftsman wrenches. I use these for years in the automotive industry. Same thing with my Stanley set. I've had these for years and years and years. This little set, like right here, this was a set of line wrenches that I bought when I was 15, maybe 16. And for my very first car, I needed to do a set of lines. And this was, I don't know, dirt cheap way back then. Probably less than 10 bucks came with a whole set. I still have them. They still work. Obviously, a line wrench doesn't get as much use as a regular wrench, but here's a Snap-on line wrench. Very similar. It's nice and shiny and polished and pretty, but is it really any better than this cheap little set that I got years and years ago, just when I was a teenager? A couple screwdrivers, for example. I've got one by Cobalt. It's a newer set that I have, and I have an old Stanley. I've had that set for years. Set of vice grips. This one is an actual name brand vice grip. This one is a Stanley. And I'm going to throw you guys a curveball. What if I told you that some of these tools were manufactured by the same manufacturer? They're just a different brand name. For example, if I told you that Snap-on and Stanley are owned by the same company. And then what if I told you that Craftsman is owned by the same company now? Well, if this set costs $200, and this set costs $100, and this set only costs $25, which one do you think you would buy? When you're tool shopping, there's a lot to consider. You want quality, you want something that's going to last a long time. Price is always a big point. But if you're going to go out and spend $200 on a set of wrenches because it makes you feel happy, you could get by with just a $100 set or a $20 set if you're getting the same exact thing. Does that mean they're made in the same factory? Maybe not. Stanley Black & Decker, which is a new company. Black & Decker bought out Stanley, and then they bought out Craftsman. So I'm sure they're manufactured in different places. But they also own Irwin, which makes vice grips. That's real big on the automotive industry. So, is it really necessary to spend big dollars on big name tools? Well, 20, 30 years of use, 20 years of use, 10, 20 years of use, they all still work and they all do the exact same thing. So when you're shopping for tools, look at quality. Nothing drives you nuts more than when you go out to the store, you need something right then and there, you pick up a cheap little $2 set of something or $10 set of something, you bring it home and it breaks. Drives you nuts. But in most cases, for tools that you're going to have for a long time and you're shopping for, know what you're looking for. And here's another example. I've got two pry bars. One is a cheap performance tool, is the name brand. The other one is a Craftsman. There is a difference in these two tools. One has a plastic handle, one does not. And one has a cap on the end of it that you can hit with a hammer. If I hit this one with a hammer, it's going to shatter and bust. If I hit this one, it's not. But as far as the pry bar and the function of prying on something, they both do the same job. I've had them both for years and years and years. And they both still work. So, let's go make the move into air tools. This is a Cornwell Impact. It's one of their entry-level impacts. It's not a very powerful one. But you can also buy a cheaper brand like Ingersoll Rand. Or you could buy one of Napa's brands. And I was kind of surprised to find that the entry level on a Napa impact gun, which is this, has more power than the Cornwell. Air ratchets and little whirly tools and things that you're going to use. I've got an air ratchet here. This one's by Cobalt. This is another one that I've had for years and years. Used it professionally in the shop. And it still works just fine. It's never broken on me. So, are you going to go out and buy one from Snap-on or from Cornwell? Maybe not, if you discover that you can get just as good a result at half the price. This little Cobalt, the downside to some of Cobalt's tools, they are kind of noisy. So I will give that to the bigger brands. Some of their stuff is a little more quiet. I have the same exact example here. This is a set by Cornwell. For those of you, this is probably known as a wobble. You put it on the end of an extension. You can get into crooked places or hard to reach places on your ratchet and extensions. I have another set made by Harbor Freight Tools. Not quite the same quality, but it does do the same job. I haven't broken one of those, surprisingly enough. Some of you in the automotive industry might find a Harbor Freight tool like this to be a little scary because you're putting a tremendous amount of force on these. So in that case, maybe it might be smart to buy the Cornwell or the Snap-on set. And then I said I'd have something for you soccer moms out there. Did you know that Hoover and Dirt Devil are owned by the same company? That's right, when you're comparing vacuum cleaners, you can actually find a lot of these brands are owned by the same company. So you can buy one that's a lot cheaper and still get the same results. And I'm going to put up a screenshot here, or an image that I found from an article that was published in 2017, so it's a couple years out of date, but it'll give you a good idea of who owns what. So while doing research the other night for this video, I came across a couple articles, and I found this in one of the websites when I was doing research. And you can see this is what they called the tool brand behemoths. And again, I took this image from that article on the website, so I owe them credit for the image. But Stanley Black & Decker, we'll start in the top left corner. You notice some of the tool brands up here like Stanley, Craftsman, Irwin, DeWalt, Porter Cable, and Mac Tools are all owned by the same company. The same can be said for some of these other ones on here. If we look just below the Stanley Black & Decker, you have TTI, which owns Milwaukee and Ryobi, just for an example. Again, there's the Hoover and the Dirt Devil. They also own those two companies. So you can imagine if you're comparing Ryobi tools versus Milwaukee, say you're looking for a cordless drill, you might be able to get by with buying a Ryobi instead of spending big bucks on a Milwaukee. Now, I also did a video the other day, a tool review for Ryobi versus a Hyper Tough, and I did make a comparison that DeWalt and Milwaukee are big names in the construction trades. There obviously is a difference between the Ryobi drill that I did a review on and a Milwaukee or a DeWalt. Just because it's owned by the same company, it's like anything else. You can get something that's entry level, or you can get something that is heavy duty. And in this case, I would say that there is a difference between the Milwaukee and Ryobi on cordless drills. But it does open your eyes up to the fact that if you're going to spend $200 or $300 on something, whereas something else is $100 and it's manufactured by the same company, you're probably okay to buy whatever it is that's at a lower cost, depending on what you need. So when you're going to go out and you're thinking about spending lots and lots of money on some of these tools, sometimes your better option is not necessarily to spend a fortune on them. You can get the same results just by going with a slightly cheaper brand. Now let's pretend for a moment I still have a couple drills out from a video I did a couple days ago. One's a Ryobi and one's a Hyper Tough, but let's pretend for just a moment that this is a Milwaukee. Let's say that's a Milwaukee. It's not, but let's say it is. What if I told you that Ryobi and Milwaukee are owned by the same company? Would you think twice about paying twice as much for a Milwaukee then? Bar clamps. There's a lot of different options in bar clamps. This, I believe, is a Bessie, sold generally at, I think, Home Depot. This is an Irwin, sold at Lowe's. One is slightly more expensive than the other, but they're both comparable. I haven't even used that one yet. See, it's still got the tag on it. But I've got several of them. I've got lots and lots of bar clamps. There are differences in bar clamps. Now this will go back towards the woodworking end of this. And then I've got a third option over here that I've had for over a decade at least. This I bought at the Home Depot a long time ago. This is one of my favorite bar clamps or favorite brands. I don't even know who manufactured it. It's old, but it's all solid steel construction. And a lot of the newer ones are not. Particularly some of the clamps that you can get at Harbor Freight, they just don't compare. And in fact, even the ones that are, even the Irwin, I think, is a little cheaply made compared to that old clamp that I've had for 20 years. So there is some quality differences in bar clamps. These just don't feel, they're not as heavy in your hands. They don't have the clamping force that some of these old ones had. But I've got several different brands of bar clamps because if you're going to do woodworking, clamps are your best friend. So if you're going to go out and you're looking at to save money on clamps, that's one of the things you might actually want to spend a little bit more money on. The Harbor Freight ones just do not hold up as well as some of the bigger brands. So this is a short video anyway. Do I need to spend a lot of money on tools? Can I get by with just spending a little bit of money on tools? And I would give you the following advice. If it's a good name that's out there, Stanley has been a good brand for me. With their screwdriver sets, I have their ratchets as well. And you automotive guys out there are going to be surprised to find that Stanley and Snap-on, I think it's Snap-on, or it might be Mac, might be Stanley and Mac, are owned by the same company. Again, I'll put that up in that screenshot of that image that I found from that article. I have done things with my Stanley ratchets that you can't even imagine. I have put 4 or 5 foot long breaker bars on them, and I've never broken one. I have never broken one of my Stanley ratchets. And you don't need to, I don't have to tell you there is a big cost difference between those. You're going to spend a couple $100 on a Snap-on or a Mac ratchet, and you can walk into Walmart and pick up a set of ratchets from Stanley for $20-30. Same manufacturer, same owner, owns both companies. So there is a big difference right there. So the next time somebody is giving you grief because your toolbox is full of Stanley or Cobalt, you can look at them and tell them, hey, mine's made by the same people yours is, and I paid a fraction of the price that you did. It's not always necessary to spend big bucks to have quality tools. Now that's not to say when you walk out to the store and you find that $2 tool where it would ordinarily be $50, that $2 tool is probably going to break. So do your research. Know what you're looking for and get a tool that you're going to be happy with. So that's a quick video on Tool Talk by the Happy Woodworker. I'll try and do a couple more of these where we'll just talk about tools, how they're used, what they're used for. And I'm going to try and upload one of those probably either once every couple weeks or once a month. I hope this has been useful. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you do your research when you're going to buy your tools. Subscribe, like my videos, leave any questions or comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And thanks for watching a short video by the Happy Woodworker.